As many expected, Libya's fragile peace is falling apart. Tripoli's unrecognized Prime Minister Khalifa Ghouel urged his ministers not to stand down to the unity government. Some believe there's a split within the Tripoli Authority.
Most of the public institutions in Tripoli announced they are ready to work under the Presidential Council of the National Unity Government, but Khalifa El Ghouel backtracked from his earlier stance in Tripoli. His main aim is to ensure that he still has presence and influence within the new equation in Libya.
Earlier, Libya's UN-backed unity government had moved to cement control over the country's finances and institutions. One of its main missions is to unite Libya's political powers under one leadership to fight off ISIL. But it's not an easy mission.
The peace efforts hit a wall because of the contradicting agendas of the different points of view on how to solve the crisis in Libya. I believe the main problem is the absence of nationalism within the political spectrum in Libya. The politicians here are even more divided now on local and international issues.
According to UN envoy Martin Kobler, there will be another round of talks to convince the political powers to come together. Most analysts accuse Libya's rival militias of being influenced by foreign powers. And as long as they continue to do so, the situation in Libya will never improve. Yasser Hakim for CCTV, Cairo.
The UN-backed unity government's surprise entry into Libya's capital this week has been described as a shaky debut, and its uncertain reception has pushed the peace process back into limbo. Here at the United Nations in New York, questions persist among Security Council members over how to proceed after an earlier decision by the militia-led Tripoli government to cede power was reversed by its leader. Now, the UN held a closed-door session this week in which Security Council members heard from UN Special Envoy for Libya, Martin Kobler, on the prospects for a peaceful handover. According to diplomats, Kobler said the situation on the ground remains fragile, and he underscored again the need for the UN-backed Libyan cabinet to, and I quote, go from the conference room to practical work. But there has been resistance from hardliners in Libya's rival governments, as we know, both governments in Tripoli and Tobruk. Now, the key concern among the international community is the growing threat from ISIL in Libya. Russia said during this Security Council closed-door session that despite some progress, the situation is dire and a central authority is needed. France said the unity government has a historic opportunity now to reverse the chaos that has allowed the extremist threat to thrive in Libya. And the UK said the Council will be working closely with the unity government to make sure it has the support it needs to prevent this government from toppling before it's even really started. Now, several countries are mulling operations to fight ISIL, but they will need a request or approval from the legitimate government of Libya to intervene militarily. The UN has made that a prerequisite, that Libyan approval, a prerequisite for expanded intervention, as have Western nations, including the US, France, Britain, and Italy, although France has just ruled out launching airstrikes and sending ground troops, and Italy wants a Security Council resolution before deployment. Liling Tan, CCTV, New York.
The Italian government has recalled its ambassador to Egypt for consultations in protest over the death of student Giulio Regeni in Cairo. The decision came after Rome's investigators met with Egyptian officials for 2 days in order to be briefed about the probe into the killing. 28-year-old Giulio Regeni disappeared in Cairo on January 25th while he was reportedly on his way to meet a friend. His body was discovered on February 3rd in a ditch on the outskirts of the capital, showing signs of torture. The case has strained the relationship between the two countries. Well, now for an update on that story, we're joined live from Cairo by CCTV's Adel Al-Marouki. Of course, Adel, diplomatically speaking, the recalling of an ambassador is a rather significant move. Just tell us, how has Egypt's government responded to Italy's decision?
Well, Egypt at first have officially confirmed that it has received the letter from the Italian government of withdrawing or recalling its ambassador just maybe a few minutes ago. They have officially confirmed that according to the state news agency MENA, and according to the Egyptian authorities or the statement itself, they did not actually give sort of a reaction on it. Egypt says that it will be sitting later today with the investigators teams, judicial and the executive security officials who were a part of the delegation in Rome, that they held talks on Friday and Thursday. They arrived earlier this morning, and according to the statement from the Foreign Ministry, they're still waiting to sit with this delegation to know exactly the details of the meetings that happened in Rome, and afterwards Egypt will form a sort of a new statement to give an update or maybe even respond to the recent escalations from the Italian government.
Now, of course, Adele, one of the major issues is the speculation that suggests that security forces may have been involved in the Italian student's death. As you say, investigation teams will be meeting later, but what is the latest as far as this is concerned?
Well, as far as Egypt is concerned, so far they have officially disregarded any possibility that Egyptian security forces could be behind the death of Giulio Regeni. The point of difference is that for the Italian side, they don't really mind to see substantial proof that this is the case. But in terms of the documents that has been provided from Egypt to Italy during this week's meetings, it didn't include any substantial proof or any solid documents. According to Italian officials, it's just 2,000 to 3,000 pages of a scratch pad, mainly describing the investigations held by the Egyptian side as relatively poor in terms of content. Egypt still believes that there might be a group of criminals behind Regeni's death. They say that there was a group that they have killed all members of it 2 or 3 weeks ago, regarding that they were specialized in abducting or stealing from foreigners in Egypt. There are claims that has been rejected by Italy, at least according to the documents they have so far, but both countries are now working on what will be their next step. As you said, Italy has recalled its ambassador to investigate how will they seek the truth and what are the possible steps forward, and Egypt, after meeting its delegation, will also be planning about that. But in any case, Egypt has always been stressing that it will support the Italian government. It wants to cooperate by any possible means to ease the tension from or with the Italian side.
All right. Well, thank you very much for that update. Adel Al-Marouki live for us there in Cairo on that spat between Italy and Egypt.